evening, this is ET Now and you're with the only debate on news television that puts the spotlight on development issues. Welcome to a brand new edition of the India Development Debate. I'm Sandeep Gurumurthy joining you live from our news centre in Mumbai. Joining me in Delhi is my colleague Supriya Srinath. Now, as the BJP government headed by Vijay Rupani assumes office, the Gujarat model is once again in focus. In the run-up to the state polls, the much-touted development model came under attack, maybe justifiably so. The voting pattern in the state assembly election clearly points that all is not well with the rural economy. Many believe that the high polarization may have helped the BJP save blushes this round. But as the countdown to the 2019 general election begins, there is little doubt the Rupani government will have to shift focus to the rural economy.
Indeed, with the aftershocks of note ban and GST now easing, there is a broad consensus amongst economists that growth will pick up in the mid to the long term. The problem area has been the poor farm sector growth, not just in Gujarat but for the country as a whole. The CSO data pegged Q2 agriculture growth at a measly 1.7%, and if left unattended, the farm distress has the potential to snowball into a big economic crisis. For one, the government will have to hike the minimum support prices, but this could come at the cost of inflation. One has to also consider the empty coffers of the government, which will constrain the establishment on rural spends. How to get the Gujarat model going? We're putting the spotlight once again on the Gujarat Development Model. And is there an alternative at all, or is this perhaps the only given best choice? That's exactly what we're looking to discuss on the India Development Debate this evening. And let's take you straight across to a battery of experts and guests who are joining us right here on the show tonight. And we're joined by Narendra Taneja, spokesperson of the BJP. Rohan Gupta, spokesperson of the Congress, joins us. Zafar Sareshwala joins us all the way from Gujarat, and he's the founder of Parsoli Motors and Chancellor. R. Jagannathan, editorial director Swaraj magazine, joins us, and so does Madhavan Narayanan, senior editor right here in New Delhi. So thanks very much each one of you for being with us. And Mr. Taneja, I do want to put the spotlight on the Gujarat Development Model. There's a lot that's right with it, but there's some things that are wrong, and maybe perhaps the development model has outlived its significance. Given all of that, given the fact that Keshav Prasad Maurya, the Deputy Chief Minister from India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, goes to Gujarat and says this is the best development model anywhere in the world, I'm curious to ask someone from the BJP that if that model is so good, why was that model not a talking point in the election agenda?
Well, first of all, not only the Deputy Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, represented from Punjab, from Trinamool Congress, from practically every other state, they go on kind of pilgrimage to Gujarat to understand and basically to learn. They may not admit it in public forums, we appreciate, but they all do, including Karnataka, the Congress-led government in Karnataka and Punjab, they have done that. You see, broadly speaking, there are three pillars that the Gujarat model basically, stands on. Number one is, of course, holistic total development. Here is infrastructure, women empowerment, irrigation, farmers, tourism, and all these things, as you can see, SMEs, big plants, ports, urban infrastructure, and education, and so on. So there are many. Pillar number one. Pillar number two, which is the most attractive one and the most challenging one, that is no corruption. When you go and set up, invest in Gujarat, you don't have to go and bribe the minister or the chief minister, cut deals, pay in Switzerland, pay in Liberia, pay in Isle of Man, and no such thing. So, number two, very important pillar, no corruption. And number three is high quality governance in the state of Gujarat. You don't see riots, you don't see those kind of issues there that you see in a number of other states, ruled by different political parties. So these three pillars are very important. The question is, your question, a direct question that why didn't we talk about it? That's the only thing we talked about. If you listen to Prime Minister's speech by the Chief Minister there, by a number of candidates, we only talked about that. But since we were talking about it on the land of Gujarat, we were talking of the examples, we were talking of the projects, we have delivered projects which are in progress, progress which are under construction, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So in fact, if you look at the speech, even of the Prime Minister, he spent 98% of his time talking about the Gujarat developments only, nothing else.
Right.
But the media, unfortunately, sometimes picked up the thing that they were more into. That's a different story altogether.
Okay, Mr. Taneja.
But as far as Gujarat model is concerned, this model is,
Mr. Taneja,
Yeah,
whether all the airtime was occupied by the Gujarat model is debatable, and I'm sure everyone will have a point of view on that. But we're done with the campaign phase. I don't want to take it back to what was said and not said in the campaign, because the lesser said on that front, the better it is for all political parties. But Zafar Sareshwala, in light of the verdict, in light of the mandate of the people of Gujarat, and you've been a big votary of the Gujarat model of development, and it has done a lot of good to the state. No one's going to dispute that. But in light of the verdict of the people of Gujarat, the kind of vote that we've seen, especially from rural Gujarat, vote shifting towards the Congress party, would you agree that it's time to revisit the Gujarat model of development? Would you agree that to some extent it's outlived its utility?
No, actually this Gujarat model is still continuing, and you have to see in perspective. Yes, Gujarat was a state which has a mercantile population. It was developed to an extent. It was not like UP or Bihar, but you have to see from where Mr. Modi picked up. Now Gujarat was first of all wreathing under the pain of communal strife, riots, curfew. So Mr. Modi controlled that, and we have seen not a single day of curfew and riot in last 15 years. That's one thing. Now you take urban, people are talking of urban and rural divide. It's not that. You have to understand Gujarat officially is 43% urbanized, but actually it is 60% urbanization. It is highest in the country, and major urbanization has happened in last 10 to 15 years. Now you take one city, for example, Ahmedabad. Now 15 years back, Ahmedabad was not even 25% of what Hyderabad was. Mr. Modi concentrated on developing infrastructure. Ahmedabad did not even have roads, proper roads. Ahmedabad did not have flyovers. So infrastructure built up was the major thing which Mr. Modi entrusted, and that happened in most of the cities. Surat, for example, we used to dread going to Surat. For God's sake, till last 15 years, till about 15 years back, Surat only had one bridge connecting the Tapi river, the two banks. So all that has developed in last 15 years. Infrastructure development has happened in villages.
Right.
Most of the villages were not connected with the state transport buses. Electricity. Today every single village, 18,000 village, has been connected with electricity. Now that rural problem is not that. It is actually agrarian distress, and that is because of 2 years of drought and neglect of agriculture across the country for last so many years. So I think that has to be taken care of, and I think this government of the day will also put its mark on that.
Right. No, I get your point, and I appreciate it very much that yes, there has been a rural distress and the factors on that. We have an entire segment that's dedicated to it, and we will discuss and debate all of that in just a bit. But Jaggi, I want to bring this to you. The verdict in Gujarat, yes, the BJP has won, and this is no mean achievement. For a 6th time in a row, they are back in power. It's the margin of victory that has got people talking, and that has perhaps got everybody questioning the Gujarat model. 99 versus a 77 or a 78 post-elections. The question really is that given this verdict for Gujarat, can this be business as usual? Can development mean the same thing to Gujarat today that it did 22 years back? Can it be business as usual at all? Or will the government be forced to rethink, review, revisit the Gujarat model of development?
See, one thing about any business model is that it has to be tweaked from time to time. The Gujarat model has actually 2 elements. One is the thing about tapping into the entrepreneurial culture of the state, which Zafar talked about quite well, and that was important thing. It was a heavy investments in infrastructure, and Gujarat has actually been India's only hope of reaching Chinese level of manufacturing kind of greatness. But of course, manufacturing is peaked already in most states, so that's a different story altogether. But the second part of the business model, which again Zafar referred to in a different way, is a governance model. I think Mr. Modi made a big difference in saying that if you do not have proper law and order, no amount of business model is going to work, because without law and order is the most fundamental part of any business model. So you needed that. Now, does the business model need tweaking? Of course it does, because I think in fact if you see, Gujarat actually has been a model agriculture state with far higher than national levels of rate of growth for more than a decade. So that has certainly worked. But at some point even that needs changing, because you've got not only the short-term drought, but there is a fundamental structural problem with Indian agriculture which has not been addressed for decades. And in that, Gujarat is a part of the larger India story of farm distress and farm this thing. It is not something, it's not an outlier where only Gujarat has done badly. Where I think Gujarat model has not worked that well is in the human development indicators, which I think they haven't really been able to push up above well above the national average, as opposed to its high levels of per capita income. This is where you need to concentrate on. But on the other hand, I would also say Gujarat has a very high Adivasi population, 15%, which actually skews the human development indicator picture, because though it is also highly urbanized, it also has a highly Adivasi population, which tends to lower the HDI. So I think there are several nuances in this which we need not forget. So I think the model needs tweaking, but it is not something that has failed or anything like that.
Jaggi sort of really setting the context for this debate. They're saying that the model has not failed. If it did, this government wouldn't be voted to power for 6 consecutive terms, but it needs tweaking. And this election and this mandate of the people of Gujarat reflects that factor. Madhavan, do you agree with Jaggi's assessment that the model now needs some serious tweaking? And more specifically, what are those tweaks?
I think Jaggi just about began saying what he should have perhaps elaborated on, but just as well, because it gives me some room to talk about it. If you look at the national average and look at the word development as opposed to growth, then obviously Gujarat has a lot to answer for. You know, I was just using the Modi style to say he awed everyone with the AWE model: administration, water, electricity. But is that it? That's not development. That's more like growth economics. Development involves education, health, and literacy, school dropout rates and stuff like that. And on that count, Kerala has been held up as a model, not Gujarat. And therefore, there is a pertinent, relevant question on whether the word development can be used for something as a shorthand or a rule of the thumb for growth economics. Also, there have been allegations of cronyism and even on land allocation. You know, if you were to use the same rules that BJP applied for spectrum allocation, for land allocation, for industries, then Gujarat is, you know, sort of open to question on some grounds. So there is certainly not been a proactive approach towards some of the human development indicators. That remains an old issue. That's a conceptual issue, because there's a paradigmatic difference between, let's say, the socially oriented economists and the growth economists. The other issue is about the stage of growth. Some of the issues that are being tom-tommed as Gujarat's achievements were actually Tamil Nadu's pride during the time when the former President R. Venkataraman was the Industries Minister of Tamil Nadu, where it was said there was no corruption, and so much so there were anecdotal tales about Japanese investors wanting to know about what to do with the money they had kept aside for bribes, and the state got discounts on the contracts. So Tamil Nadu was way ahead of the curve. So Gujarat compares very well with the Bimaru states. So what Mr. Modi has done successfully is to give a national image to something which is essentially a northern story. You know, the southern states, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, collectively in some respects, such as services industries,
Right.
or industrial growth, higher education, have done far better than Gujarat, I would think.
You know, there's a very interesting point that you're making, that Gujarat, when compared to its siblings like Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, isn't faring well, and you're actually comparing Gujarat doing well to Bimaru states. I wonder what Narendra Taneja has to say to that. I'm going to throw it to Mr. Taneja to counter that point, but I will also add a question here. As a member of the BJP and as somebody who understands economy, somebody who understands finance, the need for development, the nature of development, will you acknowledge that the model of development in Gujarat has perhaps benefited very few people. Because if you even look at the wage differentials in urban and rural Gujarat and the wage differential between Gujarat and other states of India, on the national average, Gujarat is a lot lower. So how are you going to A, counter the point that Mr. Madhavan Narayanan made here? And I also want you to answer the question that I'm putting forward. Will you acknowledge that the development model has benefited a few?
Well, I mean, let me give you one statistics. Look at, for instance, when BJP moved into Gujarat in the cockpit, what was the per capita income in Gujarat that 1995 was 13,605. Today it is 1,43,504. That's the per capita income. So evidently, you know, when you are growing and you're growing at 10%, which Gujarat has been growing, then every single person gets benefit of it one way or another. Maybe more in urban areas, little less in tribal area. That's quite possible. But when it comes to, you know, Gujarat could be compared only with Bimaru state. I mean, which state in the so-called Bimaru area was growing at 10%, or even for that matter in the southern part of the country? The question is that in such a short period of time, Gujarat from where to where now? That's number one. Number two, when you look at the growth in Gujarat, as I already said, is more holistic in the sense you have the biggest refinery in the world in Gujarat, you have first LNG terminal in Gujarat, you have, you know, number of other things which are like the first in Gujarat, close to 50 ports in the state of Gujarat, and at the same time you look at, for instance, you know, data like child mortality rate, the lowest in the country. Of course, there is a definition of development. I mean, a co-panelist talked about, you know, Kerala. Yes, Kerala in 15, 16, economies like Gujarat Model, they were studying Kerala. They were going there, spending time in studying. But that was then. Today, and there is a Scandinavian definition of development. If you adopt a Scandinavian, you probably may talk more about Kerala. But if you adopt, you know, general definition of development, which include industry and everything, then I think Gujarat is much better, or is actually has an edge over Kerala. So that's why a lot of people in number of publication, books and research, they have compared Gujarat with South Korea in number, because the population size is the same, coastline is the same, number of things are the same, initiative is the same, and so on and so forth. So I think this can go on. But the important thing is that Gujarat, you talk to any chief minister in private, any ruled by any political party in India, they all look at Gujarat, believe me, in awe, because I interact with many of them privately also. But at the same time, Gujarat model is also evolving. It's also developing. It's not static. It's learning from the mistake. It's evolving at the same time. Also picking up best idea from within the country.
Narendra, I take that point on board. You're saying it's not static. You're evolving, and also happy to hear you acknowledge that you're learning from mistakes. That's precisely what the agenda of this debate really is. But quick point on the extremely wonderful growth that the state has changed.
Absolutely.
It's also because some of it also predates the BJP term. Gujarat was a high growth state even before the BJP took charge, and some of the social indicators where it was lagging, it was even before the BJP took charge. But let me take this across to Rohan Gupta, who joins us from the Congress. And Mr. Gupta, I understand this temptation of the Congress party to interpret the verdict as one of the rural voter alienating the BJP. But if you look at it in a more granular manner, which is what we attempt to do in this show, it's essentially the Saurashtra region where they had a serious issue of both the cotton and groundnut farmers, and there were reasons for it. There was a severe spell of pink bollworm attack on the crop that caused damages, destroyed nearly 35% of the produce. Add to it the fact that the government was probably late in increasing the minimum support price. It's a local problem, and you know, isn't it a sweeping statement to say that the Gujarat model of development has alienated all of rural Gujarat, and that it's only benefited a smaller section of the state? Mr. Rohan Gupta.
If you see 2014 results of Lok Sabha elections in Gujarat, Congress had 34% vote share. Today it has jumped to 42%, where BJP has reduced from 60 to 49%. See, basically it's not question of Saurashtra or one region in Gujarat. Mr. PM, who was CM of Gujarat for 12 years, all the promises what he made to people of Gujarat are still on paper. If you see the whole campaign of Gujarat, none of the time they have spoken about the promises made to people of Gujarat, whether it is 30 lakh job or 50 lakh houses, all on paper. Gujarat's debt is 2.47 lakh crores. where this money has gone in the shows like Vibrant Gujarat and all. And I was hearing peacefully or silently to Mr. Taneja saying that refinery and all these things. Please check history. All these refineries, all the dams, all the cooperative societies were much established before the BJP's rule in Gujarat. It was before 1995. See, the credit must go to people of Gujarat. It's not one person or other. It is all Gujaratis' hard work which has taken Gujarat to this level. But what has happened to promises which have been made by BJP governments, then Mr. Modi, and after that the other governments, they are on paper. So where is Gujarat model? If you see BJP, their arrogance in the whole campaign of not talking about promises made to people of Gujarat, it has brought them from 3 figures to 2 figures. Yes, there are learning for us. They have people of Gujarat, they have increased our seats by 17. So as a strong opposition, we will continue raising voice of people of Gujarat. But the way BJP is still talking about Gujarat model, it is really surprising that even after people of Gujarat, they have given them caution, they have to take it with pinch of salt. And if they continue ignoring people's issues, whether it is Gujarat or India, they will be wiped out in 2019.
Okay, you know, Mr. Gupta, I just think this is a very different show. This isn't much like what is done on Indian television, a lot of screaming, shouting, calling names. And, you know, you can turn around and say that BJP has been reduced from a triple digit to 99. People will turn around and say the same about you in Lok Sabha, where you've been reduced to 44. What goes on from here? I think let's keep it constructive. But Jaggi, I do want to throw this question, the point that Sandeep raised with Mr. Gupta, I do want to raise it with you. And let me just turn around the whole argument on its head. You had a region where groundnut and the cotton crop had completely failed. There were low remunerative prices for cotton. There was a severe spell of a worm that the GM crop had become resistant to. And yet the MSP happened very late. What will you blame that on? Is this pure apathy, or is it the fact that rural/agri reforms or rural/agri conditions don't figure very high on the Gujarat development model, which is skewed in favor of, you know, perhaps industry, perhaps business? I mean, what is this on account of? Is this just pure apathy, bureaucratic negligence? What will you call it? I mean, you had a region where there was a very pronounced problem which would have blown in your face in any case.
Yeah, I mean, I think what has happened is, I don't think it's fair to say that agriculture was not a priority during Mr. Modi's time. In fact, he got a lot of small, water bodies done, and he tried to create the broad thing. He brought the Narmada schemes to deeper into the state, all those things, though it may have started before him. So all those, I think the emphasis on getting water to agriculture was certainly an important. Canals got better lining. They did many small things like that, which were long term for a good thing. I think what has happened is, in the last 1 year, I think they were complacent because all the polls showed that they were so far ahead that they didn't have to do anything to win the next election. And it was only in the last 3 months that they suddenly realized that they left this agricultural sore to sort of grow into something big, where people were really unhappy with how the government was responding to it. But I believe 2 things. One is, the agricultural distress problem is a larger India problem and not related only to in Gujarat, because of Saurashtra and the problems they had, and that was left unaddressed till the last minute. That was certainly a huge point of discontent. But the broader thrust on urban growth is what is going to deliver even in Gujarat. Gujarat is more than 40% urban, and if you do not emphasize urban areas, you're not going to get jobs. Where Gujarat model is lacking, and especially when you're stressing agricultural growth, is that human skills need to be enhanced. So if you do not enhance human skills, which is where Kerala benefits, that if nothing else is happening, they can send their skilled workers to the Gulf and they earn money through a remittance economy. In the case of Gujarat, you can't export any worker there, I mean, because your human skills are not at the level of this thing. So the urban model needs to be married with a human skills model or a human capital model, which is where Gujarat can succeed. So you need a mix of the Gujarat and Kerala models in order to make Gujarat a real super performer. That's the key.
Zafar Sareshwala, coming on that, would you agree that, would it be fair to say that some of the gains of the rapid growth that the state of Gujarat has seen have not been equitable in Gujarat? And partly is it because of the very structure of the economy? The fact is that Gujarat remains an economy which is export oriented, coast based, capital intensive with limited regional linkages. So the very structure of the Gujarat economy is such that it's perhaps tough for it to be as equitable as one would like it to be. Zafar.
No, what I am saying is not tweaking, but I am still a votary that what they had started, what Mr. Modi had started, they need to do more. Now there have been some setbacks. For example, which chief minister or which government of the world would not believe the Tatas? When the Tatas came to Gujarat, Mr. Modi gave him the land, water, electricity, everything in 3 days. But Tatas had promised that they'll be manufacturing how many 100,000 cars. But that did not materialize from the Tatas. They had promised that if they start doing it, then 5,000 jobs directly would emanate from the Tata factory and 15,000 jobs would be from the surrounding. Now that did not happen. But then you have very soon, the Maruti or the Suzuki plant, which is going to be the largest after Japan, which is coming up very shortly. It will be operational in maybe in couple of months' time. Then you have Ford Motors. So I think that no country or no state in the world can progress without manufacturing, because manufacturing is one thing which percolates down. Now what Mr. Modi did about education, somebody was pointing out, I have studied in Gujarat. When we were studying in mid-80s, we had only 4 engineering colleges, for God's sake, in the whole of state. We never knew ITIs. So Mr. Modi, the first thing which he did was he set up and he started left, right and center, growth of medical, engineering, pharmacy, professional colleges. We did not have ITIs. Those ITIs came up. 20 universities have come up now. When we were growing up, we had to go to Maharashtra, we had to go to Karnataka to study medical and engineering. So that was one thing which was lacking. It is now coming up. So what I think, that they need to go more and more, further and further in developing what Mr. Modi had left, and that would be the role model, that would be the road ahead. Now coming to that agricultural distress, you have to understand Gujarat is water scarcity state. But Mr. Modi did lot of check dams. Water of Narmada has went up to till Kutch. So that is a different problem. It is not a rural or a urban distress. It is specifically agricultural distress, and it has slipped from the center, from the national segment, which we have not concentrated in last so many years.
Okay. Zafar Sareshwala, I think I'll have Rohan Gupta make a quick intervention there, and then I'll move on to Madhavan Narayanan, because I do want to ask on the trade-off between incentivizing and attracting industry vis-a-vis how do you spend on social sector. But Rohan Gupta, I think you want to make a quick point there before I go forward.
Yeah. One quick work I want to make here is, if you see BJP governments in Gujarat, they have given benefits to few groups, like 5-6 big groups, and not to the SMEs, which is the crux or which is heart of Gujarat. If you see Gujarat, the traditional Gujarati the industries like ceramics, textiles, pharmaceutical, shipbreaking, they are all on verge of collapse because government has not seen them at all. Their focus, their development model was limited to 5-6 big people like Tata, and who have taken benefit of government by taking free land and not using it for the purpose for which it was taken. So it was lopsided development model. It was an easy model where the Gujarati was ignored, and that's why all the numbers related to employment, they have done vibrant Gujarat summits. You can see the numbers, not even 5% investment is materialized on ground. Because even if you see the projections in Vibrant Gujarat, all projections were only limited to 5-6 big industrialists. So the ignorance of small and medium industries in Gujarat has led to collapse of this model, whether it is employment. And when you are talking about farmers, what has happened? Narmada Canal, 36,000 kilometer canal work is still not done. Why the farmer is unhappy? Why they have given 71 seats to Congress? It is because of unrest. MSP has been reduced. So if you see fees, one gentleman was talking about education. The whole education sector has been privatized in Gujarat. They had come out with one regulation where they regulated the fees, but they are not able to implement.
Okay.
So if you see the...
Okay. Rohan Gupta, I get the larger point that you're making, and the point really is that the farmer is upset, and so is the youth of Gujarat. I get the point that you're making, but we can't afford to waste so much time on just one single topic. Madhavan Narayanan, the point that Rohan Gupta makes there, and that has often been spoken about the Gujarat model, you know, how the focus is perhaps big industry, a couple of industrial houses, vis-a-vis not doing enough for small businesses, SMEs. But how does a government strike that balance? It's always very difficult to do that, right? For business to come in, you're competing not just with other states, you're also competing with, you know, you're not just competing with other countries, you're also competing with other states now. There is this competitive federalism. You've got to roll out the red carpet. You've got to incentivize for a business to be attracted to your state. And that obviously will squeeze the money, and you have to give them fiscal incentives, which will squeeze the money that you're left with as far as social infrastructure or social development is concerned. How does one strike that fine balance?
Very good question, Supriya. I think the key point to note is, let me just joke, let's not use the word red carpet when it comes to Gujarat. A saffron carpet may be more like it. They might take offense otherwise. But jokes apart, the real issues are fiscal deficit. Gujarat has a decent control on fiscal deficit, although there is a 25% of the GDP is now constitutes debt from what I've just been reading up. But they do have fiscal elbow room. But they are so busy pleasing investors, which is not a bad thing really speaking, but capital labor ratios have shot up over the past 3-4 decades. So much so that I disagree with Mr. Sareshwala, who thinks that manufacturing is a panacea. Manufacturing worldwide is going through a challenge. Those old century-old models of attracting capital to create jobs is something like 50, 60 years old at least. So we need to think afresh on jobs, and maybe Kerala or Tamil Nadu got it right. Kerala by improving primary education that helps Gulf remittances, or Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, who've got dozens and dozens of engineering colleges that have managed to successfully catch on to the services revolution. And as far as social sector is concerned, the simple answer is there is no substitute for the state when it comes to primary education and healthcare. And on those fronts, Gujarat has been substantially not proactive. I agree with Jaggi that check dams have been built. Narmada, for which Modi perhaps does not deserve as much credit, because ever since I have personally met Chimanbhai Patel of the then Congress, or other parties, Janata Dal, campaigning for Narmada waters. And Gujarat has also had a long history of industrialization that has produced everything from Amul to Rasna to IPCL to Reliance to Gujarat SR. So what are we looking at? The real issue is, is there a proper people-oriented focus?
Okay.
And that is the question that Patidars have been asking during the recent election campaign.
Right.
I must say, picking up from Mr. Narendra Taneja, that although there has been a positive mercantilism in Gujarat, the model has had a mercantilist bias.
Okay, okay. You're saying the Gujarat model
from a very feudal kind of a culture into a more modern administration.
Okay.
Kudos to Mr. Modi for that. But let's not hold it up as a model for whole of India. Again, I want to reiterate. Compared to Bimaru states, you can go and tell Uttar Pradesh and Chhattisgarh or maybe Madhya Pradesh, look what we have done. So please let us understand that there has been a big spin doctoring about Gujarat being a model for whole of India. I disagree with that. I think Gujarat deserves rightful credit for controlling corruption. I think there is a huge anecdotal charm in listening to industrialists saying, look, boss, I didn't even pay a paisa in bribe.
Okay, Madhavan, I get that point. Madhavan, if I may interrupt you, I get that point. Madhavan, I get that point that if I may please interrupt you, and I want to get in a word. Okay, I want to get in a word from Jaggi there, who's been listening to this debate now. Jaggi, very quickly, the point that Madhavan is making, and the question that Supriya asked him, it's a trade-off, isn't it? It's a tricky trade-off. On the one hand, and Zafar made this point as well, that Gujarat is a state that's done phenomenal work in attracting manufacturing investment at a time when India as a country has failed in doing that. So it's a trade-off. You want to incentivize industry. Spoke about the Tata example. You want to incentivize industry to come up, set up, invest in the economies, invest in the state, set up manufacturing plants, hire people. And other hand, that obviously squeezes the ability to invest in human, in human capital. And you spoke about the Human Development Index. I've got some data with me, and I'm told that Gujarat spends less than 2% of its income on education and just 0.8% on health. So how does a state like Gujarat balance trade-off? And given the fact that the state has done rapidly well in terms of infrastructure improvement, power, etc., is it time to now, move towards improving human capital parameters?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no two ways about it. You have to invest in primary education, because if you don't learn the 3 R's there, and I think and soft skills that are necessary for any job, today you need jobs are actually becoming gigs. Nobody is getting a permanent job from age 25 to age 60. I mean, you have to have constantly upgrade skills. So what you do in primary education is very critical, more than even secondary and higher education, because if you don't have the habit of self-learning, you're not going to get jobs. And that is what all the Patidar and other agitations are about, because they are landed communities. They realize that the land cannot be made more productive than this unless some people move out, and you need to create jobs in other sectors. And that's of course an all India problem, it's not just a Gujarat problem. I think the key point which I would like to marginally contradict Madhavan is this, that see, Gujarat I think has been a good manufacturing state, and it has a good large supply chain in terms of textiles, apparel, and cotton and everything. So if they get the supply chain, the rise in wages in China could actually have helped us become the next big Vietnam or Bangladesh in terms of an export capability. I think that is what we have not been able to harvest, and that's the area of manufacturing we really need to stress. Though manufacturing as a whole may be going down, but there are certain areas like for example textiles and apparel where we can still do very well, and which Gujarat could easily do, but we haven't done it. And that's where I think we need to emphasize. Okay. And yes, human development indicators, I mean, there's no question, you've got to invest more in health and education.
Oh, absolutely. But Narendra Taneja, the question that one wants to ask on the Gujarat model of development is that, do you believe it has had a transforming effect on the economy, or has it only, accentuated what perhaps was a pre-existing trend? I mean, so much has been said on this show about Gujarat being essentially a mercantilistic state, a trader community. Do you believe the Gujarat model that's often, and I'm going to ask the Congressperson the same thing, because is it fair to criticize the Gujarat model? Because the question is, has it really transformed the economy in that sense, or has it only accentuated what was a pre-existing trend in the first place?
Transform. A co-panelist said the refinery was before BJP came to power. That's factually incorrect. That happened after BJP came to power. Similarly, the India's first LNG terminal, as you know, gas is changing the very shape of India's economy, and is going to change even further. That was also in Gujarat. That also happened during our time. But I want to point out one thing. I've been listening carefully to my co-panelist. You see, politicians, trust me, politicians learn faster than economists. They adapt also faster than economists. You see, and if there is, for instance, as I said, Gujarat model is a dynamic model. It's evolving, it's changing. I mean, wherever we need to learn from mistakes, we are learning. Where we need to rebalance, we rebalance. The whole idea is basically we deliver to the satisfaction of the people. From this election, we have some lessons, and trust me, we will actually rectify all those mistakes before economists are able to complete their 2 pages or 1 article. We will do that. So that's what politicians do. I want to give you an example of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Dr. Manmohan Singh was a socialist economist. He was Secretary General of South-South Commission, headed by a die-hard socialist like Julius Nyerere. And you saw different Dr. Manmohan Singh when he became a politician in 1991. Completely changed. 360-degree change. So that's what happens in politics. In politics, you respond to the reality. You know if there is something, we need to rebalance, we need to change, we do that. But having said all that, when it comes to the Gujarat model, the fact is that is one of the best that has performed, that has delivered in Indian context, and at the same time that's being actually very seriously looked upon, very seriously studied by a number of other countries. And it's no propaganda. I'm not talking as a BJP spokesman. I know a number of countries where ambassadors have traveled, their ministers traveled to Gujarat to study it. I'm not saying they all started copying. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying, they've been curious, they've gone to study it. And a number of chief ministers and finance ministers, different states, including West Bengal, they've also done that. So, and as I said, agrarian issues, rural economy. I think we need to focus more on rural economy. We need to take many industries to the rural sector, and at the same time see what we need to do more. But as you can see, I just want to share one small data with you, that what we did for irrigation, the number of water committees, 17,700,
Right.
number of water bodies and check
Mr.
dams and
Taneja,
all that,
okay,
600,000. And one small strategy, bear with me, one sentence.
Okay.
And look at food grain production. 1995, it was 47 lakh metric ton, and 217, 63 lakh metric ton. So the story is not so bad as some people might want you
fair
to
enough.
believe.
Zafar Sareshwala, you're sitting in Mumbai. How would you contrast this with Maharashtra? Why is it that some of the other states, Madhavan spoke about Tamil Nadu, another state that's attracted a lot of investment from foreign players and from domestic players as well, and has done fairly well when it comes to social parameters as well. Both Jaggi and Madhavan spoke about Kerala as well. Maharashtra as well, another state that has attracted a lot of investment. You're sitting in Mumbai yourself. How would you compare and contrast Gujarat to some of these other states? And why is it that it's Gujarat that seems to get this sort of, is touted as this unique, one-of-a-kind model, when some of the other Indian states have also done pretty well?
See, Gujarat has not got lot of FDI, but Indian industrialists have done phenomenal investment in last 15 years. Maharashtra, if you take Mumbai out of Maharashtra, then Maharashtra is nothing. Mumbai has been Mumbai for almost 150 years. Now coming to the education segment which you mentioned, yes, Gujarat was always lacking in education. I have earlier said in your channel that although Ahmedabad and Gujarat, various cities had the best national institutes, the IIMs, the National Institute of Design, then you had School of Architecture, the National Institute of Fashion Technology. But if 15 years back, if you would go there, you would find hardly a Gujarati there. You would hardly find a Gujarati IAS. You would hardly find a Gujarat cadre IAS and original Gujarati. We never had this culture. In fact, we never even had a UPSC training academy. So these things were never there in Gujarat. But in last 15 years, we have started developing. I'll tell you about my own community, the Muslim community. Till 2002, we only had 2 Muslim-run schools in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad. Today we have 51. People have been talking of Juhapura, the most squalid place which people have been talking on the television channels. But in Juhapura alone, we have 13 Muslim-run schools. So we were lacking, and I am not saying that Gujarat was like New York or 45th Street or El Dorado. You have to take it in perspective and compare. And yes, lot of things have happened. Lot of things are going to happen. So you have to take in perspective. And yes, as Mr. Taneja said, yes, this government is there. They know, they will introspect, and they will see where the holes have to be plugged.
Okay. Mrs. Zafar Sareshwala, you make a very spirited defense of the Gujarat model there, and Madhavan Narayanan isn't clearly quite impressed. So I'm going to ask him the most uncomfortable question on this show. If not Gujarat, then which model? What should India aim? How should we be developing is really the big question.
Well, if you ask me, Supriya, that's a very good question. Ideally, I wouldn't mind, it was Mark Twain who was asked, do you want heaven or hell? He says, I like hell for its society and heaven for its climate. And let's do the same thing with economic development models. I wouldn't mind the primary education model or a healthcare model like Kerala, and, a higher education model closer to Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, and, a certain administrative cleanliness that is Gujarat. I think that is the cocktail that India should be aiming for, and maybe, just maybe, we should also be a little bit more green and learn things from Sikkim, which we don't fashionably mention. We keep ignoring the Northeast, but there are some pockets of Northeast which are well administered. We need to take best practices from everywhere. I think it is a good idea to be thinking a bit green also. This is always my chance to get my 2 cents in, because we are heading for a completely different paradigm of industrialization with the coming of robotics and environmental concerns. And maybe somebody should be ahead of the curve on that. It's India's best chance.
Okay. I need quick closing comments. I've just got a minute and a half on the show. Jaggi, you first. Do you agree with?
I make a quick point.
Okay, coming to you. We are coming to you, Rohan Gupta. Let you
I'll
have the
take a
last
half
word.
minute to reply.
Rohan, we will come to you. I want to get a word in from Jaggi and then we are coming to you. Jaggi, very quickly, would you agree with Madhavan there that what you need is a cocktail of all these models? Kerala, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and of course Gujarat for administrative cleanliness. But is it feasible? Can we get a cocktail of all these models? And if you were to pick one, what would you say that the Gujarat model still stands out for what it has delivered over a period of 2 decades?
So 3 things. All states, there are several Indian business models. There is even, I would say, a West Bengal model which looked at land reforms and Operation Barga and all that. So, I mean, even though it's failed in every other things. So, if you pick up the best in each state, you will actually find the ideal model which can take on the world. In Gujarat, I would say they have been able to push up average incomes very high. But what they have not done so well on is redistribution and building of human capital. That is what they need to learn from the southern states. And everything else they have, but their model is entrepreneur oriented, and that is a model that every state should learn from Gujarat. I mean, that's critical, and it has worked very well. And the administration, governance models, these are good ones to learn from Gujarat, but Gujarat could learn from other states too. So every state is built on its own core advantages. I wish states would look at other states and learn what they have not got in their own strengths and build on that.
Okay, Rohan Gupta, I know you've been wanting to make a point there, so we will get you to do the last word on the show. But I also want to ask you a political question. Whether it's a narrowing margin or whether it's the fact that the Congress has had a good show in Gujarat, the reality is that the Chief Minister who got sworn in today was from the BJP. And the BJP has wrested Gujarat for not just 22 years in law, but 6th time all over again. How do you explain the fact, if the model is so horribly wrong, why are people voting the BJP back to power time and again?
See, I'll answer your question in 2 parts. First is talking about Gujarat model. If you see Gujarat before 1995, we had growth rate of 16.73%. There was a proper balance between public sector and private sector. PSUs like GNFC, GSFC, the big mega PSUs were established at the time of Congress government. The crux of Gujarat model was cooperative movement, whether it is sugar cooperative, milk cooperative, cooperative banks. So entrepreneurial spirit of Gujarat was always different compared to all other states in India. Apart from that, if you see education and healthcare, it was never given to private sector. Today, the situation is the government or the BJP government has tried to encash the Gujarat model, which has been built up because of the hard work of Gujaratis, not because of one individual. I was listening to Mr. Sareshwal, and the way he summed up that last 20 years is where the Gujarat development has happened. That is totally wrong. It is the Gujarati spirit of entrepreneurial which is responsible for what Gujarat is today. And after BJP has come to power, all the human development indexes, like he was naming the different institutes when they were established and saying that Gujaratis were not there, I think this is not correct. What I mean to say that original Gujarat model, which was before 1995, it gave the proper balance which was disturbed by BJP after they came to power. Now coming back to your point. If you see Gujarat, they loved Mr. Modi. They gave him 26 seats in 2014. Obviously, when a Gujarati goes to Delhi and becomes Prime Minister, it is a pride for Gujarat, including me. But after he went there, 3 years, he visited Gujarat 3 times. And in last 1 year, when elections were nearing, he visited 30 times. At the end of the time, at the campaign, just let me complete. If you see the campaign, it was never on Gujarat model. It was never on positivity.
Rohan Gupta,
he made an
that's how the
emotional
BJP
appeal.
contests
He made
its
an
elections.
emotional appeal to Gujarati.
Okay, right. And the Gujarati seems to have found that emotional appeal. That's what elections are all about. You give it all, and then you wait and see what
this is the last chance.
Voter
This is
does.
the
And
last
in this
chance.
Case, the voter did not let its son of the fall down. No, I'm sorry, I've completely run out of time here on the show. This has been a very, very fascinating. Mr. Gupta, please hold your breath now. This has been a very fascinating discussion. I think at the end of this all, we can only say that yes, Gujarat was perhaps predisposed to the trade that happens there, to being a mercantile state. But the BJP government has done some things right to prep up the industrialized model in Gujarat. However, development changes over time, and it's time now that Mr. Rupani and his entire team put their heads together and decide that the next phase of development for Gujarat has to do with the social sector. It has to do with Human Development Index that can no longer be ignored in the state of Gujarat.
Indeed, on that note, we'll thank our wonderful panel here. You can argue about whether the Gujarat model is balanced or not. You can't argue about whether this debate was balanced or not, as we got all spectrum of views on this fascinating discussion here at the India Development Debate on ET Now. Thank you, Zafar Sareshwala, R. Jagannathan, Madhavan Narayanan, Narendra Taneja, and Rohan Gupta for joining us with your perspective right here on ET Now. Good night.